Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, From Detection to Transparency, Authentic Assessment in the Post-AI World. My name is Chris Skousen. I'm the Ernst & Young Professor and Chair of the School of Accountancy at Utah State University. I am thrilled to introduce this topic today, as I have spent many years investigating fraud detection and prediction. And now, when I think of an even more important topic, that is, how do we look at detection and transparency within the academic realm, especially in helping our students think critically? I have worked with AI, examined AI for over 2 years now, and nearly everyone in my department uses their product for our exam assessments. I believe they have discovered and are leading the way in how we use AI in our academic setting. With that, I would like to introduce my good friend, Gonzalo Tudela, CEO of Examined. Gonzo.
So we're going to be building on a topic that we started talking about in earlier in January. I did a presentation in Auburn University on April 5th, titled "The Rise of AI and Reframing the Integrity Problem." And so as we jump into this topic and we start talking about, how are we going to unlock authentic assessment now with AI everywhere, I wanted to ask a quick poll for everyone. And really the question is the college essay dead? And this isn't an MBA class. Okay, there is no "it depends." What it is here is give me a yes or no answer. Tell me what you think is the college essay really dead now? Can we use it as a form of assessment? So we're going to show the poll at the end of the presentation. So we're just going to continue moving on as follows. So for today, for the agenda, I'm going to be focusing mostly around the concept of the essay or the paper, right? The college essay. And what I'm going to show you is really going to be applicable to other fields for other purposes, whether you're doing projects or modeling in Excel. The framework I'm going to give you today is still going to allow us to do so. And how we're going to get there is, first, we're going to start with asking the right questions, right? So I'm going to give you that framework for integrity. We're going to align on what the primary objective is. If we can all align, and I think we will today, on what we're trying to achieve, then the rest of the presentation is always going to have that lens. We're going to talk about the challenges of ChatGPT, of essentially what's being called the jagged frontier, and why we need to actually embrace it in assessments as soon as possible. And how, with regards to content detection, how accuracy is a bit of a red herring here. And then we're going to basically, after spending most of the time on what's the problem here, we're going to move into how do you unlock this authentic assessment now. Wrap up with some key takeaways and Q&A. So I'm hoping to keep this, somewhere around 40 to 45 minutes. But this is always a challenge when you might have technical issues and so on and so forth. So let's move forward. So first, with regards to framework and integrity, if you hear nothing else today, nothing at all, just walk away with understanding this, because it doesn't matter if it's an essay or a quiz, or it doesn't matter if it's a project, but when you're thinking about academic integrity, it's a lot about asking the right question. And so the sort of the framework we use is that it's a psychological element, right? So there's a student who gets a trigger, and then what that means is there's a reason for cheating. So they might have a fear of failure. They might have partied too hard. They might not really know the material. So something triggers them to cheat, right? And this is where a lot of what you see with instructional designers trying to limit the triggers or the reasons why students cheat, by changing, for example, the curriculum design. Instead of having an exam worth 100%, they might put 10 quizzes throughout the course. The next part is the action. So a trigger results in them taking the act of cheating. And an action is something like, for example, when a student actually gets that second device out and goes and looks on Google for the answer key, looks at the questions, right? Or when a student, brings and slips something into their exam room, when it's a closed book exam, let's say it's on paper, and the act of having that little note or that printing on the Coca-Cola pop bottle, the action, right? And that's where traditionally the industry is focused, is how do we limit the action, prevention, how do we detect cheating, that kind of stuff. And then the third piece is the reward, right? So something triggers you, you take an action, and then you get the benefit of cheating itself. And what the right question to walk away from is not how do we stop the act of cheating, more so as it is, how do we reduce the value of cheating, the reward component? And I actually want to tip my hat to some of the stuff that UIUC is doing out of the Gief School of Business. Well, basically, when these AI extensions came out and they started hijacking Canvas to answer the questions in their quiz, they very quickly adapted and realized, well, if we can't stop students from using all these different extensions and tools, how do we make sure those extensions and tools don't provide any value? And what they did is they actually found that if you change a multiple choice question just to present it as a dropdown of 3 or 4 choices, what happens is that the actual little extensions couldn't figure it out, right? And I think that that's kind of one of the benefits. And we did something, last year and the year before around, personalization of exams at scale and getting back to normal distribution curves by basically not having Google show any answer keys, by delivering new, fresh content every time. And it all comes back down to the right question to ask is, how do we reduce the value of cheating? So if you walk away, just reframe yourself that way, you're going to see academic integrity in a whole new light. And the next part here with regards to the primary objective is what I want to do here is get everyone on this webinar completely aligned. And what I mean by completely aligned is I've spoken one-on-one with close to about 400 now students, faculty members, instructional designers, administrators, deans, provosts, and really it comes down to what's the North Star we're all trying to align to. And everyone unanimously agrees on this, right? The goal of a university degree is not to graduate with a piece of paper that says that I can get a job. No, it's to teach students how to think critically in an ever-changing world so that they can be successful in life and in their career. And I think that's so fundamentally important that we keep that goalpost in mind. And you're going to see this little flag show up a couple times throughout the presentation. And I'm going to bring us back to this goal, because when we think about teaching critical thinking, there's essentially 2 components. There's the teaching, the transferring of knowledge, and then there's that assessment component to say and benchmark where are they and how can I improve them, that zone of proximal development, and or the awarding of the credential. And what's happening is sometimes we get so focused on trying to keep things with high integrity, or try to stop students from doing things, that we miss that fundamental core component. So again, I'm going to bring us back to this a few times, and you're going to hear me say it. It's to teach students how to think critically in an ever-changing world so they can be successful in life and in their career. And the challenge that we face as an industry in the education sector is, and the definitive answer as to whether or not we need to embrace AI in assessment was what I would call just answered in a recent paper. So the paper was done by a joint effort with Harvard, Wharton, and Sloan Boston Consulting Group. And so the Boston Consulting Group's, a top 5 management consulting firm globally, and they do an excellent job. And this visual really illustrates the evolving landscape and challenge that everyone is dealing with in this industry. And I love it. I love this visual so much because it depicts it. And it says that AI's capabilities are better in some things and worse in others, and better in some things and worse in others. So the argument is like, it can't do math, or it can't do this level of reasoning and critical thinking is missing the point. The point is this whole thing is fluid and it's constantly changing. And there are going to be tasks that are done by an AI that are done much better when they're inside the frontier. And then when they're outside the frontier, they're done much worse. And then so on and so forth. And the reason why I'm bringing up this paper, and there's a link to it right here, I think Mark will drop it in the comments, is because of this graph, right? Boston Consulting Group put 7% of their workforce on this as in a controlled study. And they said, okay, basically there are consultants who are going to use AI, and there's consultants who are not going to use AI, specifically ChatGPT. And what does it do to their performance? And when they were completing tasks that AI was designed to do, in other words, tasks that were on doing better in terms of that jagged frontier, they were quite good. The result was that 12.2% more tasks were completed. So that the output was higher. The speed at which that output came was 25.1% faster, but there was a 40% increase in the quality of that task. And why this is such an important paper, and why this to me definitively says that in education, we not only have to embrace ChatGPT and embrace AI, but also we have to bring it into our assessments, is because using AI is critical thinking. The Boston Consulting Group, Management Consulting Group, it's all about critical thinking. It's all about helping their employees and their clients achieve maximum output. So what's happened here is ChatGPT is becoming very quickly a workplace productivity tool, similar to Excel, similar to Microsoft Word, and it's going to become, it is already so important that we have to ask ourselves, what is that objective? How does that align to our primary objective? Our primary objective is to teach critical thinking. So if using AI is a form of critical thinking, then maybe we should assess that part, right? And where does that leave us with AI content detection? Does it really support the primary objective? Because the entire concept of AI content detection implies a punitive approach to its use. It implies that you shouldn't be using it, or that maybe there's some appropriate use and some inappropriate use. But I think that the high level that you should think about and really walk away from as well is that accuracy is the red herring, right? There's an ongoing argument about whether the AI detection is currently accurate enough. What should we do with it? And the reason why I say it's a red herring is because of the three scenarios I'm going to give you. And what I want you to do is envision that an AI detection tool was 100% accurate. Okay, it was doing exactly what we wanted it to do. So scenario one, a student comes in and they conduct research using ChatGPT, right? They use it to generate the arguments and the outline of their paper. In other words, are they really kind of thinking here, right? So they've just got it to just give me this stuff. Now, from that output, a student sits there and writes their entire first draft of original text. They're using their own words everywhere. They cite ChatGPT, but everything's originally and organically written by them. And then a student polishes the paper with the help of Grammarly, right? So right-clicking here, fixing a couple pieces of the grammar. In a world with 100% AI content detection, what happens? Well, there's no AI text generated. There's no AI generated text that is being detected. Why? Because the final output, that paper, was polished by them. They used grammar and they wrote everything themselves. Is that okay? It's more of just mull on that and think about that for a second. And on scenario two, let's fix that problem. Let's say the student conducts research at the university library. They use the resources, from all the academic journals. They originate their own arguments. Then they go and they grab a prompt that they found online, right? So they went to Ethan Mollick's website, found a prompt, put in the instructions of the essay, and gave an outline, and then used ChatGPT to generate an entire first draft of that essay. Okay. But then they rewrote the whole paper using their own words with the help of Grammarly. With 100% AI content detection, what happens? No AI generated content or text is detected because the student wrote the whole paper themselves using their own words. Okay, let's talk about scenario three. All right, so now the student conducts research at a university. They use the resources, everything's academic journals. They originate their own arguments. They take a long time. They take due care. And they go through and they write a first draft of original text using their own words. Then what they do is they copy and paste the entire essay into ChatGPT and say, fix all the spelling and grammar mistakes. It outputs the entire essay. Student picks it up, drops it in, and submits it. In a world with 100% AI content detection accuracy, what happens? AI-generated text is detected. And I wanted to illustrate these three examples, and three specific examples because, well, we've seen them, but also because it really starts to show the flaw in the concept that we need to increase the accuracy of our content detection. And my argument here is that more accuracy does not equal more integrity. I mean, if our primary objective is to teach students how to think critically in an ever-changing world so they can be successful in life and in their career, does AI content detection really support that objective? And I would argue that there's nothing authentic about being able to determine what the end product's result was, what the student did and what the student did not write. And so we need to look at this problem again. We need to think about it from a first principles perspective. We need to review this process of critical thinking. And we need to look and say, where's the structural flaw in our current status quo? And so when we look at, again, I'm just saying with the paper here, what do we see? Well, we see that our proxy for being able to determine a student's ability to think critically comes down to one single data point. In other words, the submission and the final submission is all that we see. We don't see anything in terms of the research, in terms of the draft, or in terms of the revisions. In fact, in engineering, we call this a single point of failure. If we screw up in this one area, then the whole thing collapses. And so as we look at this single point in failure, the goal is to move away from detection, and it's to move towards transparency, right? Because more transparency is actually going to give you integrity. If you can unveil the process of creation and understand that critical thinking is about a process, not a single data point, then what happens is we have a chance to potentially get past, well, what about ChatGPT? What about authenticity? But the big question is, how do we create this transparency of process? And how do we create this proof of effort? Now, I do think you're gonna see some companies that are gonna try and start to work on this problem, because I think that it's the natural order. It's a natural way, is to say there's the one single data point, there's the one single point of failure. We just need to figure out how to unlock and give more data points. So I'm going to show you what we're working on at Examined in how we're trying to address this challenge. And first, I'm going to orientate you as to kind of what we approach it with the student, and then we're going to show you some actual videos. It's going to be a world's first. You're going to see students actually creating and using AI to create their essays and look, and then we're going to compare two students and say, is there something that we can gather and learn from this information? So first, let's take a look at what the students here. And again, I'm going to be focusing this presentation on the essay or paper, but really, when you think about this, you can take this concept and put an Excel spreadsheet in and talk about modeling, or you can take this concept and put a coding interface and work it in data science. But the first foundational layer is to look at this. So when a student comes in, essentially what they have is they have a word editor on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, they have the instructions to use for the assignment itself. So they can go through, resize the page, so on and so forth. And they have the ability here to click on ChatGPT and start using it and essentially working with it as they're working on their assignment. And the reason why I like this approach is because, again, like I said, you can swap this out for an Excel, or for a coding editor and allow students to do this. But what it does is it takes the same approach that we've been taking with the calculator. We said, look, for this class, for example, accounting or finance, we require the Texas Instruments BA2 Plus calculator. Well, for this assignment, we require, and you can swap this model. You can change it. Instead of being ChatGPT, there are other models out there like Baird and like the Anthropic Claude 2 model and so on and so forth. But basically, what this does is it makes an inclusive approach to allowing students to using ChatGPT in their assignment. And when we have this information in kind of like the walled garden, like what students are doing, the technology is available for us to capture the information, similar to kind of how Google Docs is made. So you get a version history and so on and so forth. And what's fascinating is that we can use that capturing, and we can start by saying, okay, let's just watch what happens. Let's watch what students are doing. So this, like I said, it's a short video. I'm actually going to post the link. Mark should do it right now. If not, I'll post it at the end. And you can watch the whole thing if you want. It'll be sped up 4x, not to waste all your time, but to get an idea of how students are using it. In this video, it's from student one. And student one, what he essentially does is everything they wrote was theirs, okay? They used ChatGPT. On the left-hand side, they were working through it, and they asked maybe, I think it was 10 prompt questions before they even started writing. So start using it as a research tool, right? And asking it questions and thinking critically. And then they worked through the problem and started writing original text, kind of leaning on it, paraphrasing, and demonstrating that they could take something that was outputted and turn it into something that was theirs, their interpretation, their paraphrasing, so on and so forth. And if you want to watch it again, you can go and look at the link. But that process was purely writing, right? And they wrote that essay themselves, and they never pasted anything external and never pasted anything by ChatGPT, right? Let's compare that against this student over here. So the next student here, again, it's sped up 2x just to make it short. It's a short clip. This student basically started off by write me an essay, took it, and then just started taking the outlines of it, copying and pasting, right? Copying and pasting, then writing a few more things, and then finding something else, asking another question, copying, and then pasting. So there was very much a different approach into how this student used AI, but it's less about detection. It's more like, well, now we can see that. And that is available today. You want to watch students do this all day long, go for it. But that's not what instructors want. I mean, really what we need to balance is how do we enable instructors not to be overwhelmed and not to spend so much more time, because no instructor has the time to watch videos. And if they did, then online proctoring videos would have been something that worked. And the data showed that I think it was less than 11% of professors actually watched flagged incidences. And that can be argued as to whether or not it's because they don't want to police, and there's all these other disincentives to do so. But fundamentally, I think what it was that they don't have the time. And so if they don't have the time, we have to build something that allows them to be a little more familiar, but also can show them. Now, I have to blur out some of the names and so on and so forth. So we're going to walk through this a little bit slower. So on the instructor side of being able to see essentially what was being done by a student, it's going to have a familiar aspect similar to SpeedGrader. On the left-hand side, they're going to have the actual essay project themselves. And the first thing they're going to note that's a little bit different is this history button. And what this history button is designed to do is to be able to go back to critical events, not to just, again, rewind time, but find that critical event of, this was pasted and never rewritten, right? This was an idea originated by ChatGPT. This was an authentic thing. And just what I'm trying to get at here is imagine the learning opportunity for that student who comes into the office. They come into the office for office hours, and they ask for some help. And when you open up their paper and you go, okay, let's go, and having the analytics to be able to point yourself to an area in their process where when you graded it, you're like, yeah, this wasn't quite right, but then you can go to exactly when and how they got it. And you can back and forth and say, how are you approaching this aspect? And tell me more about why and how you did that. And what that'll do is really unlock the conversation around the process of critical thinking, not just that final output. And here what we're showing is, okay, this text was pasted, but we've actually highlighted and said, you know what, it's actually pasted and of importance because they got it directly from this area of their prompt history. So from an instructor's perspective, the reason why having visibility on the entire prompt history related to that project and being able to see, again, during that process, it's not so that they can sit there and go, wow, I've got so much to read. Again, it's about tuning and understanding what are students actually using AI for today and how are they doing it? And can I influence how that works? And how you influence how that works is by first seeing what does and doesn't work. So I believe that fundamentally to help us address this problem of academic integrity and this problem of what do we do about ChatGPT and how do we bring it into the classroom, we have to give professors more transparency. We have to allow them to see direct from source how things are relating to those assignments. And you will dictate and ask for, well, I want to be able to do this into my classroom. How can this tool help me do so? And I think the fundamental shift is opening up the entire prompt history relating to the essays, opening up that critical thinking process. And by capturing this right here, we've captured that proof of effort that they actually did work on this project. And I think they're, again, like I said, there's going to be companies that are going to be doing this proof of effort stuff, and they're going to say, we do, we capture 3 times a second for every keystroke. And I think there's going to be a little bit of magic here that has to happen. And it's not that you have a video that you can watch. That's not what matters. It's being able to point, again, to those critical pieces in the history that unlock the learning opportunity for the student and unlock the productive conversation to happen. And in this approach, again, authenticity is built right in, right? The integrity is built right in. And another thing you're going to hear about, and I do think it's coming very quickly to education, it's already in defense and government and banking, is this concept of typing biometrics. So typing biometrics are basically where, as you're doing your keystrokes, the speed at which you type and the way in which you construct your sentences and move throughout can dictate the difference between organic and inorganic typing. Organic typing is, I'm thinking, I'm working through it, it's consistently me and I am the person doing it. Inorganic typing is essentially 2 categories. One is, I've got an essay mill and I'm looking at the result and I'm just naturally just typing through it. That's a very different typing behavior. And the other one is, I hired someone else to do it. And there's, again, you build a profile as they're working through Canvas. It's coming very soon. Everyone's going to have it. And that's going to be, again, in examined as well. And the key on that one is just the last mile question is, how do we know that this person authentically wrote that paper or not? But that doesn't change the first step. Really, the first step, again, is transparency. And I want to leave you with 2 thoughts as we jump into the next piece here. The first thought is, as we build this transparency, and as professors can see more of the history, I want to compare these 2 students again, right? This was the results from student number 2 who pasted the event, and you can see it. But student number 2 had a prompt history that said this: give me an essay question about the financial crisis. Then he used it like a search term. Financial crisis 2008. Tell me more about the freezing credit market. Ben Bernanke. What are the effects? And you can start to see, okay, what are the effects? What are the arguments for the government reaction? So maybe a little bit of critical thinking. Versus that first original student that I showed, before they started writing text, they put down these prompts. What was the 2008 financial crisis? Can you go in more detail, outlining the causes of the 2008 financial crisis? What impact did it have? What did it have globally? What did it have in the United States? What aspects of the economy were affected and impacted? What about other countries? Give me an example of a specific country. What about in Spain? What does exasperated mean? So there was really a lot of thought and construction and understanding from one student to a next. And one thought I want to leave you with, again, is do we need to start grading prompts as a criteria in the essay? In other words, as we think about clarity or tone or arguments, or did they get the model correct, whatever your rubric is a grading rubric going to be your ability to prompt, or your prompting with the AI? Because what the data suggests is that in order to be effective with the use of AI, you need to be very clear. You need to be very specific. And sometimes you, as a writer, need to be quite verbose. You need to give them, a bit of a paragraph sometimes to get really good quality results. And both of these, by the way, are not great uses of the AI, but it is fully clear and transparent as to how these students are using it. So that's the one thing I want to leave you with, right? Was, do we put this in our grading rubrics? And the second thing I want to leave you with is there such a thing as prompt plagiarism? In other words, if we looked and we said, okay, a student went to Ethan Mollick's website, downloaded the one on how to generate an essay draft, and then put their outline or the subject matter in, is that plagiarism? Right? Or if 2 students had identical prompts, found it somewhere else, is that plagiarism? Is that something we need to know? I think up until now, we haven't truly had full visibility into it. I mean, some professors have decided, hey, what we should do is we should have students submit their prompt history. Well, it's very easy to create a very clean prompt history when that's not what I actually was doing. Whereas with this approach, it's very much incorporated into the platform itself. It's very much a part of showing your work. So when you're in a situation when you say, in order for me to grade your exam and you're using the calculator, show your work, right? You're in that situation. Well, this is the same thing. In order for me to grade your essay, show your work. You have to do everything in the platform. And that's really going to be the proof of effort. That's really going to be the piece that unlocks this beyond the detection systems that we've been looking at here, and what the industry is kind of still stuck on here. So let's wrap up. It looks like we're going to have some good time for Q&A, and I'm not sure if Chris is back on or not, but if he is, well, I'll get him to maybe say some closing remarks after this. But I want to ask another question. The second part of the poll is talking about what we just talked about, looking at what we saw. Is the college essay still dead? Right, and so I'm going to launch that poll while I quickly do the the key takeaways. So let's start with the key takeaways. So number one is, instead of thinking about how to stop the act of cheating, what we want to do is ask ourselves, how do we reduce the value or the reward of the cheating behavior itself? And the second key takeaway is that the future of work, it involves AI tools, right? And therefore, we need to understand that we have to build it into our curriculum, right? It's a must. And so using AI is a form of critical thinking. The data proves it. The link to the paper was there, so go read it. I suggest it's an excellent working paper. The third thing is I truly believe detection is not the solution. I think that as we try and continue to invest in increasing accuracy, it's not going to result in more integrity. Removing the single point of failure is AKA increasing the transparency of the process of effort, or the proof of effort. That will give us more integrity. That will give us more authenticity into the assignments and assessments. And lastly is, an authentic assessment today looks at the process of thinking and the use of its AI, right? It does not look at the single data point, the output. And so that's here. So let's quickly take a look at the results of the poll. So at the beginning, we had 17 and 7. I don't know the percentage of that, but someone will have to calculate that for me. 17 that said no, the college essay is not dead, and 7 that said yes, the college essay is dead. It looked about 2/3 to no and 1/3 to yes. At the end of the presentation, looks like 16 votes to no and 2 votes to yes. So we're looking at an 80-20 rule. The college essay is not dead. So maybe this does shed some light and start opening some things here. But we'll see here. So Chris, if you want to give some closing remarks before we jump into Q&A, now's your time. Well, it looks like unfortunately he's having some technical difficulties, so we'll just move on. So let's open up for some questions, some chat. I truly do believe that this is a whole industry effort and a whole industry solution. If you are interested, again, you can have a free leaked content report. Just use the link on the left-hand side, and what that is basically scanning your content before you go and deliver it as an exam. When it comes to that, again, that question of how do we remove the value versus how do we stop the action? Well, if you can't stop a student from using a second device, or your proctoring's not doing it, the best way to remove some value is to make sure your answer key is not on Coursera, Chegg, Quizlet, and all the other websites online. So we'll provide you with a free leaked content report and tell you, which questions and how many, if there are any. The second thing is, if you actually want to see some of this software live and have a demo and get involved with our alpha program, you can do so. It is being used right now by professors, and those are the early adopters, the innovators. There is a full-fledged product release that's going to be happening for next semester if you are interested in figuring out how can I bring ChatGPT into my assignments and my assessments. So let's open it up for Q&A. All right. First question, will this recording be available? The answer is yeah. You just reach out and ask, and we'll definitely share the recording. We'll share it probably through a system called Avoma. We'll give you a A full transcript, it will give you, the ability to search, clip, all that kind of stuff. Is this integrated with any LMS? Yes, it is. So currently we've done about 60,000 exams this year through LMSs with the Examine platform, and it is ready to go with all the modern LMSs, Canvas, D2L, Brightspace, Blackboard, all that kind of stuff. So any other questions? I think I saw Darcy raise his hand. There we go. Great stuff. I've been searching for a versioning tool for student writing. Glad to hear it's ready for Blackboard. Yeah. I think that again, it's the delicate balance is going to be about insight versus versioning, right? And I think that that's a very, very important piece. As we know, instructors don't have time to watch videos, and so that's not going to change the difference between watching a version. It's going to be about the insights that we point to in that versioning, right? That whole history is going to be available. That's the authentic. That's the integrity piece. The history is there, yeah, no problem. But the tool, the value, is the learning outcome, the learning experience that professor can have with that student, and being able to be drawn to, okay, there was a factual mistake by a ChatGPT here, and the student didn't correct it. Like, how valuable would that be, right? Both from being able to determine that, one, but two, being able to actually see that as a professor. Or secondarily to that is, introducing a concept like gates, like actually getting students to go through the pedagogy of, okay, I want you to put all your sources down first, click next. Okay, that part has done, it's solidified. Do your first draft, click next. Do your revisioning, click next. And kind of being able to gate the outlines and see those pieces and where they are, I think could be another powerful tool. So yeah. Again, this proof of effort piece is going to be a hot topic, I believe, over the next 3 to 6 months. I think we're going to see a lot more of it. And I think that the insights are going to be the key to unlocking it. What is the average time to review a student's written work? That's a fantastic question. So if you saw in the AI, it's designed kind of to mimic SpeedGrader, right? So it's a similar experience to SpeedGrader. And it really is going to come down to you. What do you want to do? Are you happy just reading the paper, clicking and looking for a couple, like, oh, should I investigate that, and spending a minute? Or are you the kind of person that curiosity gets the best of you, and you want to see how they're doing their prompting? Well, we find it's kind of like an exponential drop-off. Professors at the very beginning are like, I want to read every single transcript, every single prompt history. I've never seen this before. I want to see what questions result in what answers. This is super useful. And so they spend a lot of time reading through it just to get an idea. But give or take 10, maybe 20, maybe 50, you kind of get bored. You start going, I'm going to go back to grading, but I have the peace of mind. I have it there. So I would say that the average time to review a student's written work is purely dependent on what you want out of it. And that's the beauty of this. The beauty is that this is transparency. It's not, anything else. It's just, it's taking the fog of war off. It's getting rid of that black box, lifting it up so you can see what's happening, and do what you want with it. I suggest use it as a learning tool, but time is always in your control. Let's see. Okay, let me just check some of these. So that's answered. Yeah, fantastic question. Do students have to have their ChatGPT account for this to be embedded? Due to privacy issues, we cannot request students to use ChatGPT. Fantastic question. So actually, no. So everything that we have falls under the privacy control, because it's within the platform. So what we're doing is we're actually sending over through APIs and working with ChatGPT on the background, and we just tick the you can't train with this data, and they don't see who the student is or what the student, they don't know who it is. They don't know what grades they're getting. So all of those privacy things are not an issue when you go in this approach. I can't say that by other people building on top of things like Google Docs or anything. Like, there's probably more sensitivity of data you have to be cognizant of, whereas we're building the platform from the ground up for professors. And I think that the other element to say is we're optimizing the revision history for the professor's grading experience. So yeah. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, Darcy's. Thanks, Darcy. Fantastic. Yeah, so is the work saved on your platform? Again, just like our exams, they're all under the privacy guidelines and reviewed. I mean, we're at Utah State, we're at University of Illinois Geese, we're at Rutgers, we're at, just listing a few off the top of my head. We're doing some work with UBC Sauder, Telfer School of Management. We did some work with ASU. They're another client. So we've gone through all of these pieces, or these, HECVAT, privacy, security, LTI integration, accessibility, compliance. So all that's smoothed out and ready to go. Oh, two other things on that. One is it was saved on your platform. Everything in Examined is built in a similar architecture to Google Docs, which means that everything is saved in real time, right? And it means that it works on and offline. Well, not ChatGPT when you're offline. That's a different piece. But what that unlocks, and what this is so lovely of, is we get rid of that little annoying problem where when your assignment's due at 11:59 and 12:15 or 12:30, a student says, I had a trouble uploading my assignment to Blackboard or my assignment to Canvas. Here it is. And you're in that emotional blackmail, right? Like where it's that, do I dock them? Yes, I do. I'm a hard person, or no, maybe they did have an issue. And overall, there's this lack of trust in the technology you're using that you can't control. With our approach, what happens is it operates just like an exam. So 11:59, it's like, time's up, buddy. The keys are in your hands now, whether or not you want to reopen it and allow them to continue. And it doesn't matter, because everything is saved in real time, that you're going to know exactly where they were at 11:59 p.m. And I think that's a slightly different approach. And I like that approach because it's always about a positive student relationship. And when a student comes in, and you can't have to trust that they're not lying when they said they had a failure uploading or the computer was having an issue. You just have to trust it. There's nothing you can do. But you kind of deep down wonder, I see this every semester. Is this really the truth? Versus when the version history is always done and 11:59 closes, you know exactly where they were and you know exactly what happened. And you can decide to open it up again. And so you can create that positive student relationship instead of starting from that, I don't know. So to provide any feedback during. So the next one is any ability to provide feedback during the process. Yeah, fantastic question. So what we're looking at is creating the same assignment with gated elements. So in other words, part one of the assignment is due this day, and you have to submit it, and then you can provide your feedback. And then from there, you can continue to part two, right? So then you can submit it. And then from there, you continue to part three. And then, but at the final assignment is always just the final assignment. So I think that we're looking at it. It's not here today, okay? So that's just something that's in our pipeline. What else do we have here? Are your ChatGPT token costs baked into the cost of the platform, or does the cost vary depending on usage? That's a fantastic question. So the answer to that is the costs, we're taking the costs, we're eating them. Especially now, what we're trying to do is determine like how much use are students actually using it for. And the key question actually relates to, should we give them 3.5 or should we give them 4? And the cost differential from OpenAI is, I think it's like 25x. So if something costs a cent, it's a 25 cents to do GPT-4. And really this comes down to the discussion of what the university wants to do is, do we want to create higher inclusive access and give everyone GPT-4, or do we want to give everyone 3.5, which is going to be significantly cheaper? Or and then they will have the potential to maybe some students go using GPT-4, which is not a great thing. And I believe that what we should do is get out there and test with 3.5 first and see what the data shows us. And if it's not in the direction we want to go, then test with GPT-4. Even we can split test. And I think that decision is up to the universities, how much they want to go for this. We do believe that the only way to make this viable is actually through inclusive access. Students are, to give you an idea of cost for GPT-4, it's $20 per month, which would be quite an expensive piece per student for a university to pay. And we believe that because they're not using it for everything, they're only using it for just their assignments, that we could probably reduce that cost and eat it. And if everyone, not everyone, but if multiple universities are are leaning on us, we can actually do things more efficiently and reduce the costs overall. So that's kind of how we're playing it. So the answer is yes, it's baked into the cost of the platform. That's the short answer. All right, what do we have here? Are there any disciplines/subjects that this would work better for than others? I think that's a really interesting question. I think that there are two answers to that. There's one, which is what we're working on right now, which is unlocking authentic assessment of writing, right? Again, go back to that objective. Teach students how to think critically, right? And there's the teaching and the assessing side. The best thing we have right now to assess is mostly a project, a paper, something that's formative, something that lets us go to the 6th level of the Bloom's taxonomy. So when it comes down to which disciplines and which subjects, I think that it's all about scope. And so right now, if we scope to just doing essays and papers and prove that this is a proper model, then we can expand into doing other subject matters that require coding interfaces, require business modeling with Excel. So I think today, this approach is going to be best suited for papers, essays, kind of written projects. And I think in the future, should this approach work, which I'm seeing lots of positive feedback on, that it will be, we can start adapting it for other subject matters. All right. Lots of questions. Let me just see. I'm just going to move everyone up here to a bigger screen so I can actually read all these questions. Let's see. Yeah, this is a nice question. How do we teach professors and teachers the value of transparency of process and not so much the product? That is an interesting question. I think that the simplest way I think it's first frame of reference. It's frame of mind. In other words, when we explain it in these words, almost every professor has their aha moment. We say, the goal of the university degree is to teach students how to think critically. And teaching how to think critically it's a critical process. And right now we measure it by one thing, that essay, that final product. And that measurement is missing the whole value, the whole opportunity we have to help people in their process. And what we can do, and it will solve your AI problem, your ChatGPT, your worries, and you won't have to use detection, and you can see so much more, is we're going to equip you to help you see how they're doing and have your conversations, not about that final product, but where in they were creating it could they improve. And I think that's how I'd probably say it. It is a tough one. I mean, I also think, by the way, every Learning Innovation Center should profile all faculty members as to where they sit on the adoption curve. Are they an innovator, early adopter? Are they early majority, late majority, or a laggard? Because where we are is, right before the chasm in terms of between early adopter and early majority, right? We're right in this area, in that land. And if you spend your efforts trying to talk to someone who's a late majority or a laggard, you're wasting your time. They're going to sit there and they're not willing to change yet. They're not ready for change yet. They're not interested in change yet, or they have a risk aversion. And if you were to focus your efforts on the 13.5% of your faculty population that is the innovators and early adopters, I can almost guarantee an 80% conversion rate. In other words, all of them are going to say, wow, let's go, let's try this, let's do things differently, let's move. And I say that specifically 13.5% because it is not a large part of your population. It's not a large part of your faculty. It is an area. And it's a psychological propensity for change. And those are the people you should focus on. Yeah, so not exactly sure what question to ask, but I'd love your insights on how to use it for coding assignments. Fantastic. So imagine instead of a word editor, you have a coding editor, right? So similar to how like Sandbox works, we can write the code, then terminal below and see above. Imagine that's there, and your co-pilot's on the left-hand side. And then it's just about you seeing the visibility of it, right? And so you can see exactly where and how, because what we know, and we see it, we're a technology company, you see it all the time, is that ChatGPT is pretty good at getting you 80% of the way there with 20% of the effort. But that last 20%, it really requires 80% of the effort and to do it really, really well. And if you don't understand computer science, you're going to look at the code and you're not going to understand why it's not working. And that, like, what a great assignment is, go to ChatGPT, get it to generate all the code that doesn't work, give it to the students to say, make it work. And some students will go to ChatGPT, hey, make this work, and it might fail a few times, and it might not figure it out, but that process is still there, right? That's incorporating ChatGPT right into it. But yeah, so I think that coding is a harder problem to solve because there's more complexity to it than writing. So I think that we're just not there yet. Again, scoping down, focusing on essays and papers first is the key. Let's see here. One way we can solve this process is the way in inquiry-based learning. Entering prompts as inputs creates a very personalized learning experience. I love the way AI puts emphasis on the skill of asking the right questions to get the answer that we are looking for. By the way, Melanie's a rock star in my books. She's not just because what she thinks and how she says, but just how she works and the way she has opened my eyes to a lot of things is fantastic. So thank you, Melanie. All right. Do you cover the token costs? Yes, that's the short answer this time. Which languages in your system is your system working in? Currently, we do English. We have a prompt that can handle other languages, so students can ask it questions in different languages and then write their essay in English if they wanted to. So that works, and that's pretty much inherent with GPT-4. We did a project with IMD out of Switzerland, and we handled 23 different languages for them. So totally different subject, but again, that's a sort of scope increase, right? Like really, right now, we just got to focus on the traditional simple use case, and then get those other 20% of use cases. Not that I don't want to solve all that right now. It's that there's limited resources and limited time, and we have to make trade-offs on what we do first. And so we're focusing pretty much exclusively on English at this time. Oh, yeah, great questions, Arana. Okay, can this be applied to group assignments? Track contribution from different group members. So I actually started digging in and saying like, oh yeah, we can do this, because we can. We have an architecture, we can handle multiple people working on it, just like we handle multiple TAs and multiple professors working on questions. But the key here is to think about the student's experience and the student's journey. When we talk with students and we ask them, how do you go about your group assignment? What you learn is they might, if they can, get all together in a room, talk about it, and then usually the bookworm is sitting at their computer typing. So there may be students present, there may be students working together, collaborating, whiteboarding, but it may be only one user logged in. Or they can all stay at home and they can all be linked in at the same time. And so that's a difficult thing to account for. And so while we may say, hey, here's the timeline of student A, student B, student C, and what they did, and visually you could see it all in their version history, I'm not quite certain that will solve the problem. I think that there's a company, I can hear it, Insightful, with an E, Insightful, that is working on the group project problem right now. And I think some of the work they're doing is interesting, and they're kind of working in that vein. I think that the aspect of, how do we use it with AI and authenticity of assignment, again, outside scope for today, right? Outside scope for where the world's at. Like the world's moving so quickly, but education's still moving fairly slowly. And so we have to nudge them and nudge everyone in the right direction with these steps. And as an example, this AI transparency is one step in a 3-phase massive process. I mean, imagine phase 2 is where you have a dashboard of all your students. You see exactly how long the mean, a normal distribution of time spent, how much prompting was done, and the outliers are pointed out and saying, you should look at these outliers. This person came in, it was 2 minutes. They came, they pasted, they left. Probably no proof of effort there, right? And so there's a whole world of analytics, of pointing and triage, right? Because one thing is grading, another thing is is what should I look for? And I think that's the sort of next steps. Phase 3 is, well, incorporating more types of assignments. What about PowerPoint presentations, right? Does this model work for PowerPoint, right? There's a lot of unanswered questions there. So I think right now for group assignments, a little bit outside scope. Can students sign up to your product? It takes quite a time of funding and approval. Yeah, fantastic. So we have a process, a very simple process. It works very effectively. Basically, we get a champion sponsor at the institution to run a pilot. We give that person a 2-minute video that they can share with the faculty members to invite them to a 60-minute information session. That 60-minute information session, we give everyone a leaked content report, and we can basically decide who wants to move forward with the pilot. Then they move to a one-on-one onboarding session. That one-on-one onboarding session is with a PhD who's been in your shoes. He's taught before the pandemic and in the pandemic, right? That's Brad. He's one of our co-founders. He will onboard you, and the goal is to get you from sign up to exam ready in that 1 hour, right? That's what we do. And the reason is because your time is valuable, one, and two, we've found that not a lot of companies are doing a great job onboarding and helping their professors. And so our approach is a very white glove service. We do it one-on-one. The professor can deliver their first assignment, their first exam. We'll generate a report. We'll share the report with the champion, with the professor. They can decide if they want to continue using it. And if they want to continue using it that semester, they can do so. And then we set them up for inclusive access in the next semester. So basically the institution sponsors the first pilot. We go through this process, and the professor gets to decide if they want to continue moving forward. Once we have 500 seats, so 500 students who are using the product, the institution doesn't pay for a pilot, and we continue to just go through the same process every semester. And the goal of that is to increase the consistency for students. And what we found is that if software is pushed from top down, from administration, 67% of the time, professors will not use the software. And there's some data that suggests the billions and billions of dollars that's wasted. So we want to tie our success to a professor's success, to a professor's use, and this is the best way we know how, right? Yeah. Oh, and by the way, in terms of approval LMS, it's 15 minutes to set up the integration. We have the HECVATs and everything. How long the institution takes is a totally separate issue. So yeah, we do offer it standalone. Not only just LMS, where you can log in and use it without having to go through the Canvas integration. And usually some people do that with like a stealth pilot, they like to call it, where like the institution doesn't really know they're doing it anyways. And then the institution gets to see the results and then goes, yeah, let's do this more formally. So we call those stealth pilots. Okay. Oh, wrong one. Thanks, Gonzo. Love Examine. Scoring rubrics be integrated. Yeah, so scoring rubrics are on the roadmap. I think that right now what we say is use your rubric, copy and paste it into comment section, and then just grade according to your rubric. In terms of the one-click rubrics, those are coming. I have to talk to my team probably by February, March. That's my guess. So yeah. Okay, we are end of time, but I'm going to answer as many questions as I can. Let's see here. That one's already answered. Yeah, sorry, there's like 100 questions. I'm moving as quick as I can, but I think that unfortunately we're just out of time. If you want to talk, please book a live demo. Just go to the right hand link. Just take a picture of their phone or do it with a recording. If you want a free leaked content report, go for it as well. It's no problem at all. But everyone, thank you very much for your time. I apologize for having a little bit of a rocky start, which threw me off to go very, very quickly. But I feel a lot better now how we ended. So thank you, everyone. If you think we should do another one of these, or you want your specific institution to have an information session, please visit us at examine.io and just book us a demo, or to give us a contact, and we'll go from there. And by the way, I absolutely love these little reactions. It's just so warming to see a bunch of little party symbols and like thumbs up. And so thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.